All right, Guillermo Cornejo, you are here on Driven to Ride. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's great. You are an up and coming big deal, I would say, in the motorcycle world. But I'll let you say it in your own words. What do people know you for? What's your claim to fame?
I started Rideshare, which is kind of like an Airbnb, a Turo type of platform. But instead of renting houses or cars, you rent motorcycles.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly the best way I could put it. And it's kind of funny because you and I met in Austin when I was there at Circuit of the Americas for the MotoGP race, and I just found this, Kawasaki Vulcan 600 that looked good on ridershare.com and got instantly approved, which was great. And then when I came downstairs, came to your spot to meet you, we just got to talking, and come to find out you founded and own the whole company. So
yeah, I had to Uber to the MotoGP because I forgot to pause my motorcycle listing for that weekend. It was a terrible mistake, but it's cool. I still made more money from Rideshare than I spent on the Uber.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. So you've been very successful with Rideshare so far, but let's start kind of at the beginning. How did you get into motorcycling?
My dad gave me a ride when I was a teenager on the back of his BMW GS.
Okay.
And then he never, ever let me drive it. So he lives in Peru. When I moved to the United States, I missed surfing in Peru, and there's no surfing in Texas.
Right.
So I, what's the closest thing? I tried skydiving too much, and motorcycles. Oh yeah, that's a pretty same feeling. So I got a Kawasaki Ninja 250, and started riding.
Okay. So you said it's kind of similar to surfing, really?
Well, when you go down a wave super fast, you feel the adrenaline,
Okay.
And it's not quite the same, obviously, but, you get the breeze when you're riding on the highway on your face. You get the marine breeze when you're going down a wave and surfing. Obviously, surfing is way more demanding physically and stuff, but motorcycles have other types of demands, and you have to think a lot when you're riding a motorcycle, right? In time, it becomes easy, but at the beginning, it's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I've never gone surfing, but I've got a couple of friends that are surfers, and there's a lot of mental thought process that goes into it, in addition to the physical. So I guess I can see the similarities now that you mention it. So you got to really be present too. You got to pay attention, I imagine.
Of course, and you have to guess where the wave's gonna form and crash, or else you won't be able to catch it, or you get it, or if you get there too late, it already exploded on you, and you're in trouble. If you get there too soon, you won't be able to surf it. And same with motorcycles, you enter those curves, and you gotta be, if you go too slow, it's boring. If you go too fast, you die. So you gotta find a new nice balance.
Yeah, find the happy medium there. So, were you kind of hooked on motorcycles from that first time that your dad took you for a ride then?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in general, I just like the adrenaline feeling, and so, and I will say, when you're on the back of someone, you get a way more adrenaline than when you're in control of the motorcycle. But with that said, that was, that one ride was enough for me to know, oh, I really like this. And then years later, the next time I rode was taking the MSF class, and as soon as I got us on those bikes, at 5 miles per hour, I was like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah. So you knew motorcycling was for you that first time at that MSF course.
Yeah. I mean, not just motorcycling, right? Anything that has a little bit of speed is fun.
Yeah. What was it like after you passed the class, got your Ninja 250 and took it out on the open road for the first time?
I was scared shitless. I was alone. I didn't have any friends that rode motorcycles, and I had no family also because my dad was in Peru, and they were not supportive. They were like, "If you don't sell that thing, you're not coming home for Christmas."
Oh, geez.
And all I would do. I was in Dallas, not a lot of curves. I didn't know what I was doing, so all I would do is I would go out at 2 a.m. at night when there were no cars, and get on the highway and go 120 miles per hour, or 110 I think was the maximum on the Ninja.
Sure.
and I just as fast as possible redline that thing and just feel the adrenaline, take an exit and do it again.
Man, you went full send for sure. You just went right up. I mean, smart going at like 2 a.m. when there's nobody else around, but yeah, that's taking it from literally 0 to over 100 real fast. So
I was 23 years old. In hindsight, it was probably not the smartest thing.
Sure. When we're all 23, we probably don't do the smartest thing, but man, it does sound fun. I'll tell you that much. So
yeah, I mean, it's not as fun as riding in California though. I'd rather go at 30 miles per hour on a Malibu Tweed Canyon, than 120 miles per hour in a straight line. God,
yeah.
they're so spoiled in Southern California. God, they have incredible routes. Oh,
yeah. We've talked to a few people from Southern California, people that have grown up there or people that have lived, multiple decades out there. And they're just like, yeah, I'm just like 30 minutes from the hills or from the mountains. I can be in the heart of LA and be, in nature and in these amazing roads, in less than an hour or something like that. Just like rub it in my face a little bit more,
Yeah. But they pay absurd taxes. So it balances out,
Yeah, exactly. You gotta get what you pay for there. So, well, tell me about RiderShare. How'd you get started with it?
Yeah, well, you know how I was going on 110 miles per hour on the Kawasaki Ninja.
Yeah.
One of those times I was hungover and I was terrible at riding. I couldn't corner at all, and and I missed the corner and I totaled the bike and I rolled for like 20 feet. Luckily, I didn't hit anything, so I only broke my hand, nothing else.
Wow.
I had a lot of road rash, and I was 23 years old, fresh out of college. I could not afford to buy a replacement motorcycle, and I wasn't using it that often, right? Because it's Texas, like it's super hot, it rains. So you can't really go to work in one of those when it's 100 degrees outside. It's just
right.
You get there all smelly. And then, so I was mainly just using it on, on the weekends at 2 a.m. in the morning. So I figured I'm just going to rent a motorcycle, 5-10 times a year,
sure.
Have fun, and instead of owning one, right? And then I discovered that renting a motorcycle, costs like $200-$300 per day. And then on top of that, there's in the Dallas area, which is Dallas, like a major metro area, and there was only one location in serving the entire metro area. So I had to like drive 20 minutes, pick up the motorcycle, and leave the car there, or take an expensive Uber. So it just didn't make sense. And I happened to be working in risk management at the time, so I was like, ironically, yeah. It was literally like the first day. It was my second day on the job. I was moving the motorcycle to my new apartment closer to my job, and the first week I guess on the job, I arrived with all this,
like road rash, busted hand, all that.
Yeah, couldn't tie because my hands were destroyed. Oh, wow. So it was so embarrassing. But that job was risk management, and I stayed there for a couple of years, and that's where I learned like, oh shit, like I could use these machine learning techniques to predict who's gonna crash and who's not gonna crash, and make renting a motorcycle safer, and that way drive the cost down, and make it more affordable, right? And hope that there are more people out there that would rather rent a bike 10 times a year than own it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I think, is that one of the reasons that like traditionally, I say traditionally, renting a motorcycle is so expensive is because of the liability?
You say liability, but that's not really the reason. Like, because like liability means when you hit someone or when somebody gets hurt, right? And liability insurance for motorcycles is actually cheaper than it is for cars. Because the rental covers the bike, right? We're not responsible for your hospital bills, right? But unless there's something wrong with the bike, but which is almost never. Like it's always the fault of the rider. They like, if you talk to bikers, so they like to blame cagers, right?
Right.
man, it's 99% of the time in our 6 years that we've been doing this, it's the rider that it's doing something crazy, or
Some
or
sort of
made a
rider error.
mistake,
Yeah.
rider error or recklessness.
Yeah.
And so we cannot prevent rider errors, but we can prevent reckless people from signing up in the platform and from damaging the bikes. But no, the main reason why it's so expensive is the seasonality. Those traditional rental companies, they have to make money in the summer, and then during the winter, they shut down a lot of the locations because there's just no one wants to ride when it's snowing, right?
Right.
And so they don't really charge $300 a day year round. They only charge that during the summer because that's when there's a lot of demand, and they just cannot keep up with the with the demand. So yeah, in other words, like with a car rental, you get like 200 or 300 rental days of revenue per year. With motorcycles, it's like half of that. So you have to offset that with much higher prices.
I gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, your opportunities are smaller, so the cost per opportunity has to be larger.
Yeah. Whereas for with peer-to-peer rentals, for you and me, like our bike is gonna depreciate anyways, right? We need to sell it and buy a new one every 2 years. I mean, it would be nice, but so basically the revenue from the rental, if it covers your insurance payment, your maintenance, and maybe a little extra, that's great. That's good enough. And so that's why we're able to charge drastically lower prices, but still, it's still more expensive than renting a car usually. So like,
oh sure.
So the owner of the bike is getting paid quite a little bit for their, for sharing their bike. Like in my case, when you rented my bike, my Uber to go to the MotoGP and back was like what, $60 both ways, and I made it I think at 150. I don't remember. And so, and so like it's still it's attractive for the owners and way more affordable for the renters compared to like it would have cost you $600, $900 to rent a bike on MotoGP from a dealership.
Yeah, because I had it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and yeah, that would have been way more expensive. So, what kind of feedback when you like had this idea for Riders Share, and you were bouncing the idea around other people? What was that feedback that you initially got?
Well, obviously, it was like I would never share my motorcycle. to this day, like when we ran ads on Facebook, everybody's like commenting, I would rather share my wife than my motorcycle. I've heard that so many times.
Yeah.
But I knew that coming in, like that's fine. That there are 9 million motorcycles in the United States, and like we need less than 1% of them to be able to supply the demand. And if people follow like a normal distribution, right?
Yeah, so like a bell curve. Yeah.
There's a bell curve for everything. So some people are risk takers, some people are not. Some people are afraid of renting the motorcycle, some people are not. And so we only need that 0.5% of people to do it, to make this work. So that's why it was never a concern for me to, I always knew the supply was going to be there. Like I'm from Peru. Somebody pays me $150 to share my bike. I'd be like, yeah, I figured there'll be, there's other people that are super cheap like me that think prioritize money over, I don't know what do you call it, that seeing their bike as their baby, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, did you go, you said you were in risk management, but did you go to school for business? Have you always kind of had that entrepreneurial kind of mindset, or did that just kind of happen with Riders Share?
I went to school for political science and economics, and, I was like, I want to save the world. I want to end poverty and stuff like that. I grew up in Peru. There's a lot of poverty there, and it's not nice, So I was like, I want to do something about it. And then I studied 4 years at DCU, and I was like, there's nothing I can do about it. Like, the best you can do is become a billionaire and then lobby to make, for better laws.
Sure.
And so, okay, I'm trying to become a billionaire.
Yeah. That's what is the riding kind of like in Peru? Have you gotten a chance to ride motorcycles down in Peru or no?
Yeah, but I'm mostly off-road stuff.
Okay.
So I've heard there's a great, beautiful, we're really well paved route from Lima to Cusco now, and that it's like better paved than some of the roads in Europe, and it's Andean mountains, so it's extremely twisty, like really beautiful views. And Peru is a country that has very little population density. It's like twice the size of Texas, but the same amount of people.
Oh, wow.
And so if you take that route, like there's gonna be large hours, like swaths of expanses of nothingness, no people, only nature. I love that. You don't get that a lot in the United States. You know, everywhere you go, there's like a telephone post, a house. There's always something. Unless you go to a natural reserve, there's something, right? That's not the case down there. So you can literally abandon civilization for a little while, and it's peaceful, you know.
That's cool. Yeah, I've been to eastern Wyoming, which, like, talk about there's no power poles, there's no antenna, radio antennas, there's nothing.
Really?
But it's a big, flat, straight road that you just go nowhere. So it's not as interesting as the mountains. And then the other one is like the mountains of Idaho. But again, those are kind of like off-road camping. Like, you're not necessarily, riding a motorcycle up there. So it's very few and far between. You're 100% right on that in the U.S. So, but yeah, riding in the Andes Mountains sounds pretty unique.
Yeah, with my dad, we would just take a motorcycle and go from Lima, where we're from. Lima's in the coast, ocean level.
Okay.
And just head straight up into the Andean mountains, because the Andes begin pretty close to the coast, right?
Right.
And so, and in the coast, it's like a desert. It's one of the most desertic deserts in the world. It never ever rains, and it's not a single plant. All the plants are man-made, and then you start riding, and it gets higher and higher, and it suddenly starts to get green, and then finally you run into people that don't speak Spanish anymore. They still speak the native language, and it changes pretty drastically, pretty quickly.
Wow. That sounds like kind of a one-of-a-kind experience, really.
Yeah. I miss doing that. My dad's back is, he cannot do those kinds of rides anymore. He's just in pain, back pain.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Did he at least turn the corner on you riding a motorcycle now, or is he still kind of against it?
Oh yeah. I mean, he turned the corner eventually, and that's why we've been riding together a few times.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was going to say, and you're in the motorcycle industry now, so I mean, you kind of have to ride. So, what was launching Riders Share like? Like, how did you kind of, take it from an idea to reality?
Well, the first step was I spent like 6 months doing research, learning what's already out there, like how much revenue is there a market for this, and I saw Chris McIntyre had a bunch of newspaper articles, put them all together, and kind of like that was my market research. It's like, what has Chris McIntyre told the world? and his company was. He said that his company was doing $100 million in 2016 or 2017.
Yeah.
And then they signed a partnership with Harley and doubled their locations. And so, they must be doing like $200 million. There's a lot of money here.
Yeah, that's not a small chunk of change.
Yeah. And so that's why I was like, okay, let's do this. And then I created a shitty website just to test. Like, basically, I ran some ads on Google, like, to see how much it would cost to get someone to rent a motorcycle. And it was fairly cheap it was like $50, and you could convince someone to rent a motorcycle, right? And then on the supply side, that one was it took a little longer to convince myself.
Oh, okay.
Everyone was like, no. And
they didn't want to rent their motorcycles out?
When I talked to, they didn't want to. And so I started posting on social media groups, like, no. And then I posted on meetup.com, and there was this one guy was like, that sounds like a great idea. Come ride with me. We'll talk about it.
Okay. So there's renter number one right there.
Yeah. So I went and talked to him. And so for a couple of months, I was riding with an LG QET riding club in Dallas, Texas, and
Oh, no way. Yeah.
picking his brain, and that was fun until one of them got into a very serious accident, and we kind of stopped riding for a while,
Mhm.
and then I was like, that's it. That's a 0.5% that are willing to do it. I'm going to do this, and then I started finding a technical co-founder. I was able to code a website because I'm not a software developer, and that took years.
Oh, really?
Oh my God, there's a lot of really. If you don't know how to code, it's really difficult to vet other people that code.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it took like 5 tries until I finally met this guy named Brandon Lamb on Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a lifesaver. He outworked everyone. Like he did more work in one day that the people I worked with did in months.
Wow.
And so, and I also had to, while I was doing that, I was also trying to find an insurance policy that would cover peer-to-peer motorcycle rentals.
Oh,
And
sure. Yeah.
100 no's for that one as well. So between the time I came up with the idea in 2013 and the time I launched, it took 5 years,
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So we launched in February of 2018, and at the time I was I had a job in Southern California because I had identified that was the largest market with because of the nice weather, there's demand all year round.
Right. Perfect place. Yeah.
So we launched in LA first, and to make it work, I used all my life savings to buy the insurance policy.
Wow.
And then and that wasn't enough because I also needed to spend money on marketing. So I applied to 8 credit cards at the same time. 0% APR though. And
smart man.
if you add them up, it was like $100,000 in credit lines. And if it doesn't work out, I'll go back to Peru and never pay back this debt. That was my plan. I'm not crazy. Like, I'm not that crazy of a risk taker. I had a backup plan that most people don't have.
Sure. But you must have believed in the idea to at least go through with all this stuff, right?
Well, yeah, I had done the little test website, so I knew it was going to work. I knew there was demand. And my little test website collected 500 emails. And
wow.
So then we launched in February, and not a single one of those emails signed up to lease or rent. Yeah, that was very disappointing. But then within 2 weeks, we had our first transaction. Some dude from Europe rented a bike for almost $600.
Wow.
So like many, many days. And that feeling when you get your first paid customers, like, oh my God, And then because we were new, we didn't know how to capture the payment. We knew how to authorize the credit card, but we didn't know how to charge the credit card.
Sure.
And so after 7 days, we accidentally refunded the customer. And that was the start of many highs and lows in the entrepreneurial roller coaster.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's a roller coaster. Even just the first one, I can't imagine it's been. I gotta imagine it's been as crazy ever since.
Yeah, it got crazier. I mean, 6 months later, we had some Nigerians that were telling our customer to wire them money to Nigeria instead of renting on rideshare. One fool did send $1,000 to Nigeria. I was like, I'll pay you back $1,000. We'll implement more security in our website. And every year we put more and more layers of security. Every year the fraudsters figure out a way to get around it.
Yeah.
This is the first year the last 2 years we haven't had a single motorcycle stolen by fraudsters. So I'm very happy about that. But with AI and stuff, it's so easy to make fake IDs, fake credit cards.
Really?
Yeah, man. There's no way to tell if they're real or not.
That's insane. Yeah, so you do have a pretty good, I'd say, security set up to check for everything going through the process of renting a bike. When you get the motorcycle, you've got to take a picture of all 4 sides of the bike, your driver's license, you with a helmet, that kind of stuff. And that's got to be a lot of good peace of mind for the renters, the people that are renting out the bikes, as opposed to people that are renting it for for the whatever time they're going to rent it for. But yeah, I guess you always got to try to stay one step ahead of people trying to scam you out of money or a motorcycle or both, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily, we got pretty good at it. Last year it was the first time that we were at break even, and now we don't need any more outside capital to grow. So I can breathe, man. The first 3 years were so stressful, like we're doing amazing. Within 6 months of launching, we were booking like $60,000 worth of rentals a month.
Wow. Yeah.
And the second year we were like on track to do 2 million the second year. And then the third year we raised capital, I'm on top of the world. And like a week after we get the wire, the pandemic happens and they shut down everything. And
oh yeah.
My revenue went to zero. Like I had to lay off employees I had just hired, and it was just a nightmare.
So I mean, because I know a lot of people, either bought motorcycles or got into motorcycling or spent more time on bikes, but it sounds like the pandemic really hit you hard.
Yeah, because I learned that 90% of our customers were people that already have a motorcycle, and like you, they're flying out of town.
Sure. So
that's practically the only, the main person that wants to rent a motorcycle. It's not people that are trying to replace ownership.
Okay.
I think in time, once we lower insurance costs farther, once we get more economies of scale to negotiate, with our vendors, we'll be able to make a motorcycle rental so affordable that some people will be like, I'm just going to subscribe to Rider Pass and, rent 30 times a year and instead of owning a bike. But to be honest, we're not there yet. We need like a couple more years.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's a lot of hard work and a lot of like hoping and praying and, some good fortune and just staying on your toes. So, well, tell me about Riders Pass, because that's something that you guys are working on or have out right now, right?
Yeah, it's basically you pay $29 a month and you get 25% off all rentals. So basically, what it does is that if you rent more than 5 rental days per year, or maybe more than 5 rentals per year, you save money on using Rider Pass basically. And so if you want to rent a bike for like 2 months or something like that for a whole summer, you use that and you get a much better price, and we hope that you come back and do it again next year.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I mean, maybe people who don't have, maybe they do or have a motorcycle license, but maybe they don't necessarily have the space for one, or they want to try a different bike without having to buy one. I mean, there's all kinds of situations I imagine you run into that people are, renting motorcycles. Like I said, like you mentioned, traveling and going to somewhere new for one.
Yeah, a lot of people quit in their 30s when they have kids.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that happen.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean they don't want to ride a motorcycle. It's just that they never use it. It's expensive sitting there. And so I think that's my target, right? It's like, sell your bike, but you can still ride every now and then by using rideshare, right?
Yeah, exactly. So when did you go nationwide?
The second year.
Okay. Because you're all over the U.S. now. You can go anywhere, basically, right? Yeah,
we started out in L.A., and then, we grew really fast, and we're lucky to find an investor, like 2 weeks before we ran out of cash. And we used the money to open up to nationwide. So it grew super fast. And so from the very beginning. Mm-hmm.
How do you mentioned this a little bit, and we might be getting into trade secrets, I guess, a little bit, but you said you use machine learning to determine whether or not somebody is, a safe rider or a risky rider. Can you talk about that at all? Or is that,
I mean, it's like the secret is in the data, and you have to be super meticulous about how you collect it. Make sure it's, for example, when people crash a motorcycle, your adjusters need to be super meticulous in determining who was at fault.
Sure.
For example, if a car was responsible for the accident, this guy's not a reckless driver. It's the car's fault, right? So
it's just bad luck.
Yeah, so that's not someone that you don't want that to feed your algorithm. And that's just one example, right? There's obviously a million different situations that can happen. And so you have to have really clean data, and then you enrich it, right, with like credit scores, driving records, whatever you can possibly use to enrich it.
Mm-hmm.
But also you have to be careful because if the data is expensive, it's not worth buying it.
Okay.
So you only buy it for certain customers, and so it gets really complicated, right? And then once you have all that data, you feed it to. Well, we used to use machine learning. Now we use neural networks, and then we don't even have. We have one model for theft, one for fraud, one for the probability that it will crash, one for how serious is this crash going to be, and so I'm happy to tell you all the trade secrets because it would take you years to catch up, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because neural networks, AI, machine learning, it's something you never thought would be necessarily used in the motorcycle industry at all. But when you explain it, it makes perfect sense because you have to determine, the risk factor, I guess, of somebody who is going to rent a motorcycle from somebody else. So
I couldn't believe it. Like when we went from machine learning to neural networks,
mm-hmm.
you would think it would be like incremental improvement, right? It was, we cut our costs in half. It was insane. I could not like when I was calibrating the model, I could not believe the numbers. It's like, this is too good to be true. Like I must have made some kind of mistake. And then we tested the model for like a month, 50-50, the old one, 50%, the new one. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't believe my eyes. Like these people are not crashing, these people are crashing. And so now we use neural networks and that really has been what allowed our business to turn the corner and start, growing without relying on outside capital.
Nice. So tell me about the process of, kind of the front facing, the process of if somebody did want to rent a motorcycle with RiderShare, how do you kind of go about doing it?
Why don't you tell me?
Yeah, you just go on there and you find, your location. So I went to Austin and, you put in the dates and then saw, a bunch of different bikes and picked one that looked good. And, just basically a couple of clicks later, you go through, the cost and then, I got instantly approved, which was nice. So I guess the algorithm was kind to me. Then you pick insurance and there's a couple other options and then that's basically it. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. A lot of hosts also offer delivery for extra charge. And you can also rent helmets and if you need them. But most people don't rent helmets.
Yeah. Yeah. I brought my own helmet, which because a lot of people don't carry. I can't imagine a lot of people like stock a bunch of different sizes of helmets either, and size is obviously important for any piece of gear.
Many of our hosts do.
Really?
They start with one bike, they make money, and they end up with 5-10 bikes, because, and it's not necessarily like, to quit their full-time job. It's because they love all these different bikes. Mm-hmm. And if they're paying for themselves, then, might as well. And so, and then they increase their success by having multiple size helmets, right?
Sure. Yeah. Become more accommodating and all that. So, what's maybe the coolest bike that you've seen rented on RiderShare that you've come across? Is there one that sticks out in your head or no?
Oh man, so many. There are some really nice Panigales out there. Mm-hmm. And the price is so low that I could not believe this is real. It's just like, I've seen a live wire get rented a few times.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then there's all the trikes, the Can-Am and Slingshots that according to the state, they are motorcycles. According to their insurance policy, they're motorcycles. So, okay. So we allow them on RiderShare. Fine. And I don't get it. Like, why would you rent a Slingshot instead of a car?
Sure. Well, maybe if it's nice weather and it's warm, it's kind of like a convertible, kind of like a motorcycle, but
Yeah, they look cool, I guess.
To be honest with you, if I could rent one for a weekend, maybe just to see what all the fuss is about, So.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's the novelty, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to pay $20,000 to get into one. So, so since you started in, with the idea, back in 2013 and launched in 2018. And now, you're very successful in 2024. How's the motorcycle world changed in your eyes since you had this idea?
What I've seen is that there's a lot more bikes out there, like variety of models and makes and prices. Although I guess it's starting to change. I guess Harley has really slimmed their lineup recently. And then there's a lot more ABS, and obviously I care a lot about risk management, so I pay attention. And I've noticed that a lot more bikes now have ABS than 10 years ago off the factory, and but we're still so slow. Like I want to upgrade my Kawasaki right now. I'm riding a Vulcan.
Yeah.
And I bought it because the Indian dealership closed during the pandemic, and I had just moved to Texas. And fine, I'll buy a Kawasaki Vulcan, and I'll get an Indian that I want when they reopen, right? And
yeah.
It's been 4 years, and I just cannot get myself to spend 4 hours fighting and negotiating at a dealership just to upgrade my bike.
Interesting.
This bike is fine, and it's like some dealers have started to do you can complete a transaction entirely online. For example, the Warhorse group in the Northeast, I think they're mostly Ducati and BMW. You can get your bike delivered to your door and sign the paperwork without leaving your house. That's awesome.
That's smart. Yeah.
I mean, with cars, I get it. They're expensive to ship, and motorcycles, just put them on the back of a truck and send them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, talking about traveling and stuff, do you travel a lot? And if you do you use your own service to rent motorcycles around the country?
No, I don't travel a lot. I mean, I'm starting to now that the business is basically runs itself. I'm starting to travel again, but most of the travel I'm doing here is weddings and a conference in Chicago. So but once I get to travel for pleasure again, yes, I definitely plan to. It's we're still only 6 employees, serving 30,000 people a year, and so man, for many years I didn't have any free time at all. I was just doing customer support, answering emails, doing the marketing, talking to investors, doing the accounting every month, I was doing freaking everything, except coding. So, yeah.
Well, it sounds like at least you've got a little bit of room to breathe now coming up, which is good. And and what's kind of in store for the future now? What's coming up next? What's the next big thing for Riders Share?
So I've noticed that I was trying to my insurance company was raising my Kawasaki rates.
Oh yeah.
And I was trying to compare rates and noticed that unlike the car industry, can't really there's no website where you can compare quotes. Or is there one?
I don't think so. Maybe, but I don't think so. Usually, from my experience, it's motorcycle insurance is again kind of ancillary. It's a secondary thing compared to car insurance. So
yeah, it's 2024, and you have to enter your form 10 times to compare your insurance policy. So I have more time to hear, so I got my insurance agent license.
Oh wow!
Started an agency, and I'm in the process of getting 50 licenses in all states right now to start. I'm going to start that, a way to compare insurance quotes. And because Riders Share gets a lot of web traffic, we have almost 400,000 motorcyclists in our database. And
wow.
And so if we create a page to compare insurance quotes, it's probably going to take off. And so that's the next thing for us. It's going to take a few months, though. But yeah, I feel like I'm not even trying to. I don't think there's not a lot of money, right, on that stuff.
Sure.
You get paid $50 for each insurance policy that people bind and whatnot, and it's not a lot of money. But it's more for me,
Yeah.
I want that service to exist.
Yeah. It's fulfilling for you. So
yeah.
Well, talking about that, I mean, obviously you've been successful and congratulations on all the success with Riders Share, but maybe money aside, what's been the most fulfilling thing for you, starting Riders Share and taking it to where it is now?
I hated like corporate world and playing politics. Like all these managers were just they didn't care about helping make cars more affordable. All they cared about was how do I get promoted, right? And so it's super cool that every time we do something, it has an impact, for better or for worse, but it has an impact,
Yeah.
And also, it's really cool to just work from home when like today, and not having a boss is really awesome. And especially in the last couple of years, I spend like 2 months every year with my family.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, like I just um, people die, right? I mean, if we ride motorcycles, we all know someone that passed away riding, and so and especially when I had a close call, I was like, yeah, it makes you like really aware of that, people could be gone any minute. So I spend 2 months every year now with my parents so that when they eventually pass away, I was like, I have no regrets. I spent all the time I could with them. I can control life, but I did whatever I could within my control.
Yeah. Well, and then, money comes and goes, but time is something you don't get back. So that's why you got to spend time, with people you love and doing what you love, like riding motorcycles. So obviously you still love to ride. What makes motorcycling so special for you?
Man, at this point, I haven't owned a car in like 5 years.
Really? Okay.
And when I get into a car, I just get so fucking angry, because you have to wait behind the other cars. On the motorcycle, even I got used to splitting lanes in California.
Oh yeah.
And then here in Texas, I mean, no one's gonna stop you from doing it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so like in a car, you just sit in traffic and you're so powerless, And on the motorcycles, like, well, there's a red light. I'll just go all the way to the front, and when it turns green, I'll rip it. It's just, I mean, I know it sounds cliche, freedom, right? But you literally have more freedom in a motorcycle than in a car, right? And
you're talking about the practical freedom of maneuverability and being able to get out of situations. That's one of the reasons I love it too. Just being able to just get away from people, and use speed to your advantage. So you're totally speaking my language on that, man.
Yeah, like that person doesn't know how to drive. I'll just leave them.
See ya.
Yeah.
Yep.
And here now, seeing motorcycles get free parking in downtown.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so like, there's never parking down there, so like, just take the motorcycle, right?
Yeah.
And then we have hill country, and that's really what I like most of the motorcycles is going on a rural road and and with no traffic, no congestion whatsoever, and just twisties and nature.
It's a good way to clear your mind and be present, much like surfing, I imagine, where you gotta be paying attention and you don't have time to think about any other problems that are going on. So.
Right. You also had hardly study on how it's good for your mental health?
I saw the headline, but I didn't read the details. So you got to fill me in now.
I mean, anytime a company sponsors a study, it's like this BS, right?
Right.
But I feel we will have experienced it, right? After 2 hours of riding and just being concentrated on the road, it's like you suddenly start feeling so relaxed, so like your mind's so clear and it's I'm so addicted to my phone, right? I cannot go 5 minutes without checking it. And every time a customer emails on rideshare, I read that email, right?
Oh, really?
Every single one, almost. and I cannot live like that. I need to stop. And one of the few ways that I can force myself to stop is riding a motorcycle.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great way to end. So, Guillermo, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it, and excited to rent another bike on rideshare, man.
Thanks, man. I'll be here.
Yeah, and just so we've got it too. What is the website? Because I don't even think we actually said the website.
Oh, it's www.riders-share.com.
Nice.
And there's a dash in the middle because when I started it, the domain only cost $5 if it had the dash in the middle, right? And credit card, super broke, like
right, yeah. Gotta get what you can, but and you're on social media as well.
Yes, all of them.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you just Google rider share, will come up right on top.
There you go. There you go. Well, Guillermo, again, thank you for being here. We appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man.